Welcome, returning guests to the Rochester Rotary March 2nd meeting. My name is Ron Lakeville. I serve as your club president. Would you please stand and join me in Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Would you please join me in the Rotary four-way test? The things we think, say, or do.
Is it the truth?
It's fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Have a seat. And Marty Padman.
Thank you, Ron. I'm pinch hitting for David. For those of you who don't know, he is visiting his son out in, I think it's Utah, where he's been for several months. So glad to see he was able to get that trip taken care of. Would you bow your heads, please? Holy God, thank you for this day and the opportunity to gather with Rotarians, both in person and online. In particular, we're inspired by the privilege to have good service to ourselves as we care for those around us and throughout the world. As Rotarians, we commit to building better and healthier communities through our service and our presence. Bless this meal, this time as we gather. May we be encouraged, may our friendships grow. Amen. Good praying there, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. How about Jeff Whitby? You want to introduce our guest?
Thank you, President Ron. Good afternoon and welcome to the greatest club on earth. A little feedback off that little phone there. Let's see, we have member-elect Don Hobley. Don, welcome Rochester Rotary. And, online, I've seen a gentleman by the name of Roop Raj. Haven't seen him before. I don't know if somebody can introduce him. He's our speaker.
There we go.
Well, we'll be introduced later. Welcome to Rochester Rotary, one and all.
I notice we got the spirit of him coming in right now, getting his lunch. Our 15th sign of the day was actually Stewart. Do you have any happy bucks today? Any happy bucks? None?
I have a happy buck.
Go ahead.
My son, Andrew, who's been suffering with COVID for the last 2 weeks, has taken a turn for the good. And he is sitting up in bed now. And we're very, very optimistic that he's going to beat this.
All right. Anybody else? We always have the mayor saying something. He says he's hungry. Birthdays, remember birthdays. Hap Walton, March 3rd. That's tomorrow. So let's sing happy birthday to Hap. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hap. Happy birthday to you. $5, please. Club anniversary. Steve Shettenham, 12 years. George Crozer, 13 years. And Wayne Hodges, 21 years. Congratulations, guys. Club announcements. Ernie Schaefer, you got something?
Okay, does everybody know what month this is? What?
Foundation.
It's Foundation Month. And this month, we'd like you to give a little extra thought to the foundation. If you grab the flyer that's laying in the middle of the table, here's some ways you can work with the foundation. And before I get into that, I just want to make a comment. I know we struggle a little bit with sending all this money to Chicago, to the foundation. But one of the things you need to realize is if it were not for that foundation, what Linda and Jay have done in Guatemala probably wouldn't exist because they have provided significant dollars for that project. And of course, there's the polio fund and a lot of the other things we talked about. So don't think that you're sending this money away and it's never coming back. It's a significant fundraiser for our club in a lot of different ways. So this month, I'd like you to think a lot about the foundation. Pull out your little chart. There's a lot of ways you can get involved in helping the foundation. We are going to be doing every Rotarian every year. That money goes directly to the foundation. That'll come a little bit later this year. You can obviously make a separate contribution to the foundation anytime you want. It doesn't have to be $500 for a Paul Harris. It can be $100. And if you need some help doing that, let me know. You can charge it to your Rotary account. So that's a consideration. We don't talk a lot about this, but the Rotary Foundation can be included in your will. And if you would like to do that, let me know and we'll get you lined up with the right people to make that happen.
Give it a minute, it'll come back.
You came back anyway, Tim.
And there's
club donated almost $35,000 to the foundation. This year so far, we've only raised about $5,000. So we really are a little bit behind the ball. I don't expect us to get to where we were last year, but we'd like to put together a little better showing than 5,000. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, question. Don't forget, you can not only give it to yourself, but if you have somebody that you want to give it in the name of, you get credit and you still get, you know, the pin and whatever, but then you also recognize somebody either in the club, or it doesn't have to be in the club. It could be a good friend of yours or something. So you can give it to yourself or you can give it to someone else and it still does the good work. And I've done that a couple times myself. And it's very rewarding, you know, for me and for you, that you can do something nice for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good point.
Some other announcements. I talked about it and I will continue talking about it till April 29th, my birthday. There is it's called Ron Lichtel's 70th birthday wish fundraiser. I'm going to end up sending the link out to everybody. Basically, it's raising money for college education funds. Grace Centers of Hope, we're looking to have that happen in April. Rachel's got a tentative date right now for April 22nd. Spring cleanup at the park will be in April. We'll have a board going around for sign up for that coming up. The garage sale, May 1st. We are definitely going to have it. Anybody that's got donations, you can start bringing them next week. I'm opening up my garage for them. but a few things that we don't want. No encyclopedias, no clothes, no books, and no computer stuff older than 3 years. So anything else? I mean, that would include, I'm going to have my truck and trailer available if people are going to donate furniture. I'll pick that up the day before the garage sale. Book drive's coming up in June. The Rotary wine tasting last year was canceled. This year it was canceled for April. We got a shot for having it in June. We haven't heard back yet. I'm stopping over there today to see if we can get a firm answer. Excuse me, the golf ball outing. Ethan Hoffman has stepped up to the plate. He's going to lead it. He's been dealing with Shirley Gofrank on all kinds of ideas. She's going to mentor him. And we got a tentative. I'm hoping Blake McClellan will take the golf ball drop and he'll be mentored by Jay Eastman. So we'll be looking for committees on both of those. So we got some good stuff coming up. Next up. Sheriff. Oh, I'm sorry. Rotarian of the Week. Last week it was given to Ray Dorr. Ray, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I thought I gave it to Steve Schuttenheim last time.
I got to update my notes. Steve Schuttenheim, are you there?
There we go.
You're muted,
Am I unmuted now?
now you're.
Yep.
There you go.
All right. Yes. He did give it to me. I thought he was going to, for some reason, I thought maybe he held on to it, with, like an Indian giver or something. But so problem is, I don't know who's sitting in the audience over there. And the person I was going to give it to is usually on Zoom. So I think what I'm going to do is, if that's all right, is I'll just hold on to it. Next time we'll give it away. How's that?
All right. He's going to hold on until next week.
Yep.
And actually, this week, you're still on board. You are the sheriff this week.
That's what you told me, yes. All right. So just so everybody can hear me, it's very important. Again, I know you guys like to meet over there in person, all that, but let me just tell you, this Zoom thing, the pre-show, as I call it, is where it's at. I mean, this is what's happening. We learned so much during the pre-show. I don't know if you could hear it, but there were some numbers that were being given out. Hopefully no one was writing those down as John Somerville was calling off numbers. I know people thought those were his credit card numbers, his Amazon account, zip code, password, or whatever. But so just, that was going on. We learned about Dick Spee's nap time. So, just try to be careful. We don't want to, wake him up too early to get ready for the meeting, but I guess he got there on time today, so we're happy about that. Shirley Gofrank gets the award for the most pleasant exit from a Zoom meeting. She did properly excuse herself before she got up. I'm a little bit worried about where she is now, but hopefully she gets back soon. As far as some things that have happened, there was a little bit of a glitch with the meeting. I'm a little bit worried. I know Ernie Schaefer was talking about wills and donating our money when we die, and then all of a sudden the meeting went dead. So I wasn't really sure whether he was making a donation or what happened there, but I'm glad that the meeting is back online. I'm happy about that. Other things, March is reading month. So if you've ever read a book, been late getting books back to the library, or you've stolen a magazine from a waiting room to finish an article after you left, that's a $5 fine. If you take your book back to the automated machine at the library, I don't know if you've ever noticed there's a little thing there that says spine first. Just so you know, I'm a rebel. I put my books in the wrong way every single time, just because I don't like to be a rule follower all the time. I heard Christine did retire just because of that, and so that's a $5 fine for me being a violator. Spring training started for baseball. We have a new coach, new Tigers, and it looks like so far the same result. We've lost the first two in spring training. So $5 if you think this is the year of the tiger, $3 if you've lost interest, and $2 if you think we're just be talking about tigers at the zoo instead. Golden Globes were on TV this Sunday. Netflix had more nominated shows and along with the other streaming services. So $5 if you have no idea what a streaming service is. If you think streaming deals with fishing, or by the way, if you should chuckle like a junior high school kid every time they said Schitt's Creek, that's also a $5 fine. Let's see. Oh, in holiday news, it is National Clean Up Your IRS Act Month. These are real holidays, by the way, so not making any of this up. So if you have your receipts still in a shoebox, you're still cheating on your taxes or lying to your accountant, that's a $5 fine. Please pay up before you go to tax jail. This week is World Hearing Awareness Week. So it's $1 for every time you said what, huh, or for you nicer people out there, pardon me today. If your neighbors complain that your TV is too loud, or you find your friends that are talking to you louder and slower to try to get you to hear, it's time to spend your fine money on hearing aids instead. Today in history also, it's the Dr. Seuss was born today in 1904. So if you've ever seen a cat in a hat, eaten green eggs or ham, and hopefully that's not what's for lunch today, or found yourself talking in rhymes for no reason, that's a $5 fine. And lastly, in 2011 on this date, the eastern cougar was declared extinct. Good news, I understand that there is a small population of eastern cougars that are still on the prowl in downtown Rochester in bars nightly. So if you've ever been stalked by one of these, that's a $5 fine. So it all goes to charity, and this is the only place where bullying for charity is legal. So please pay up and enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Steve. You always do a great job. Mr. Tim Duncan, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Today it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Roop Raj, currently the 5:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. anchor at Fox 2 News. Roop's career started at age 14 when he produced and hosted his own television program in Troy, Michigan. At age 19, he starred at CBS and ABC stations in Lansing, Michigan. After a couple of years, he was hired to anchor the news in Flint, Michigan, followed by 7 years at NBC in New Orleans. After 24 hurricanes, including Katrina, Roop moved to Detroit in 2009, where an economic storm was brewing. He is an ardent believer in the city of Detroit's future. He wishes that more people would travel to Detroit to see how our diversity, the natural beauty in this region, and the sense of community are unparalleled. Roop is married. He and his wife live in Rochester with their boxer pup, Louise. In his spare time, he enjoys cooking, traveling, and reading. So without further ado, Mr. Roop Raj.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you, everybody. And Chief, I've known of you for many years, and I didn't know you had that funny bone in you. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I liked your jokes. I knew where you were going with that cougar joke, though, as soon as you mentioned that. But I think you do a great job. And one of the reasons we love this town and the reason we moved here is because we love visiting. My parents live down the road, not far from where we live, and Rochester's always been a big part of my life, having grown up in Troy. But that downtown, I got to tell you, we live in a place that the downtown's 7 minutes away. The village of Rochester is 7 minutes away. My parents are 7 minutes away. Everyone's just a toss away, a very quick drive. And it's just such a pleasure to live here. And what a great community. We say those things because it sounds like the right thing to say when you're welcome somewhere, but I really mean it. I mean, we put our money where our mouths are and moved here and are so proud and happy to be here. So thank you very much. This town in general, Detroit, is really an incredible city. I often think about how many cities in this world can say that they make things with their hands and make things with their minds. And the whole reason that my father and mother came to Detroit in 1983 was because my dad was really good at doing both. My dad is a manufacturing engineer and was working, I think it's just kind of a cool story because you're a Rotarian, you're into everyone's story, you're a curious person. So I thought I would share with you just briefly, you know, that people say immigrants, people say, oh, the story of immigrants, and they just kind of put it all into one box. And that's just not fair because every immigrant, every person, your family, your forefathers have a different story than the person in the box sitting next to you. So we shouldn't assume that our stories are the same. Polish Americans had a very different experience than Italian Americans, who had a very different experience than Indian Americans. And so just to kind of give you a little brief thing, and then we'll get into some media stuff here, a little bit about me. My mom and dad, it's a funny thing, and I'm going to take a really bad left turn and veer into some negativity for a quick moment, but I get a lot of negative tweets and threats and emails and voicemails that are just pretty bad. Generally speaking, people say things like, go back to where you came from. And I say, well, I'm from Troy and I really like Rochester, so I don't want to go back there. But really, my parents, my dad always tells me, he says, don't get bothered by those people. I said, why don't I get bothered, Dad? It's bothersome that people can assume their story is more American than ours. He said, I can't think of a story more American than yours, Dad. He says, what do you mean? I said, you literally were in an engineering school in India, and he was working for Ford in India. He was helping manufacture and engineer the tractors that Ford was contracting to India. And so in India, my dad is working, and he's working at Ford, and he sees a big sign in the break room in India with an Uncle Sam with a hand pointing like this saying, we want you. And the story that you probably, many of you are old enough to understand this, but many people who are younger don't get it. America had a huge drought of engineers in the 1970s. There wasn't enough talent. They didn't have the talent right here because they didn't develop that. But in India, they were developing that engineering talent for so many years. That's why even today, so many Indians that you meet are doctors or engineers, because those are the two fields they were going into. But the science and the engineering part was a big part of the culture of India. When they say get educated, they mean become an engineer, become a doctor. They didn't say go become a television anchor or a journalist. You either become a doctor or an engineer. My dad sees the sign. He just got engaged to my mom, and he said to my mom, hey, there's a huge need for engineers in America. And so my dad applied through a program where he could work here in America through Ford and make it to America. He wasn't banging on the door to come in. My father and mother actually had a very good life in India. They actually came very well off. They both of their families had help in the house. They grew up having never cooked a meal, never washed a piece of clothing, never fixed anything in the house. They had people to do everything for them. And the reason they wanted to come here is because they said, we want our boys, our kids, and I was born here, but when we have children, we want them to be born American. Because what other country in the world invites other people because of their talents and says, hey, we need engineers. Let's get some engineers in here. Let's go to India and get them and make them American. So my dad and mom came here proudly in 1973 and became American citizens. My mom and dad both were very excited to be here. They cashed in all their chips in India for air tickets and apartment money and didn't really have a lot when they moved here. My mom, till this day, says she had a really interesting experience. Remember, she never washed a dish, cleaned a toilet in her life. And they were here for about a week and a half. My dad goes to work on a bus while he's going to get his grad degree in Indiana. That's where they first moved, at Ball State University in Muncie. So he's going to work, and then he's also going to school. My mom walked to a Kmart that was about a mile away with my older brother in her arm. And she goes and grabs cleaning supplies and comes back, and she goes into the house and she looked around and she goes, I got to clean a toilet. She'd never done it. And so she gets on her hands and knees and she says, she lives in Rochester. I asked her the story. She loves sharing it. She said, all of a sudden she turned around and she was bawling. She was crying. And she said, what did we do? We gave up this great life where we actually had help that cleaned our toilets, cleaned our stuff, cooked our food, folded our clothes. And we moved here where I have to do everything on my own. But she still did it with the tears in her eyes, was really happy to do it because she knew that this was going to be a place where boys would be born. And so we were born and brought up here in America. And at the age of 7, my dad worked from General Foods to General Dynamic is what brought us to Detroit. As you remember, General Dynamics, of course, making the tanks. My dad worked at the 850 building on the border of Madison Heights and Troy across from Oakland Mall. And is an engineer. So think about it, General Foods, General Dynamic. And then he worked at General Tire before that, and then General Motors. So he calls himself a 4-star general, my father. So our story is quite American. And I just wanted to begin with that because I think, maybe it's just helpful for me to say out loud because recently in the last probably 3 months, I've gotten some pretty major threats, some awful human beings saying terrible things about my family. One guy calls my voicemail daily till this day, every morning at 8, and he leaves me a voicemail message in which he does an Indian accent pretending he's my dad, saying all kinds of offensive things. And the thing that's most hurtful about that is my parents' story couldn't be more damn proud American than anybody that I've ever seen. My parents still stand up in the house when the national anthem comes on in their living room in Rochester. My American white and black friends would make fun of them for doing that in the 70s and 80s. And so their story is so American. And so I draw courage from them when they say things will get better. I draw courage from them when they say those ignorant people think that the only way to be American, red, white, and blue, is to be a white person. And dare we pretend that that's the case when we know for a fact that people came from all over the world with their talents to become something in this great country. And that's what my dad and mom are doing. And that's what I'm doing here. But what other country in the world, though, credit to America, can a brown kid grow up in Troy and say, hey, one day I want to anchor the 5 o'clock news, and it can happen. It happens because of this great country. That being said, with the moments we have left, I wanted to just share with you a quick question that I get all the time about why we do the news the way we do the news. And I just want you to know one thing right off the bat. Number one, we don't just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. That's not the way it works. Just like in your respective fields, like my dad, who was an engineer at General Dynamic and General Motors, there was a process. And the process means not just ratings. There's a strange stereotype. And listen, it was true in the 80s that if it bleeds, it leads, and that we need to just be as sensational as possible to attract viewers. There are fewer people watching TV than ever before in terms of, the competition with the phones and the iPads and people who just have turned off the TV. The streaming services have created tremendous competition. What we know is this: if we are going to survive as an industry and as people who are journalists, then at a local level, remember, there's a difference between national and local news. We're not national news, we're local news. We live in this community. I shop at the Kroger at Adams and Silver Bell. We go to the Whole Foods at the Village of Rochester. We go to the shops and stores all around here, just like you. There's an accountability when I run into people that I be telling the truth and that I should be telling the news the best way possible. Dave Llewellyn at Channel 7 lives not far from me here in Rochester and Oakland Township area. He and I have a discussion all the time. We're going to see the viewers. We're going to see our customers. The network people, they can say whatever the hell they want, and they can scream from a mountaintop about this, that, and the other, yell about the candidate you like, berate someone, make fun of someone, leave out information, and they're just going to sit in their sky rises in New York and hang out having martini parties talking about what people in Michigan need to know. That elite media on the right and the left sits in New York, and also some of them on the West Coast. We're right in the middle of it, man. We're local newscasters. My job is to tell you what happened. But the way we think about doing the news is a little bit different than you probably think. We don't think in terms of ratings from the beginning. I don't even know what the ratings are. My boss, who's the news director at Channel 2, doesn't look at the ratings every day and say, oh, is the reason we went up in this particular time period because Roop Raj did that story on this? We actually sit down every morning at 10 a.m. and say, what is it that is going on in our community? Community is a big word in this town. 5.2 million people live in this viewing area. And so you think about Macomb and Oakland and Wayne and Livingston and Washtenaw counties, everything that's going on. So counties and all of those people, how do we determine what will be on TV that day? Well, it's not if it bleeds, it leads. But I will give you this. When something that's not supposed to happen happens, that's news. And I want to give you a quick example. I mentioned the Silver Bell and Adams grocery store that's like 2 minutes from our house. If I go to the grocery store and I get out of my Jeep and I go with my cart and I walk into the store and I say hi to a neighbor and I grab the milk and grab the bread, grab the chicken, grab the tortilla chips, let's be honest, grab a lot of junk food during the pandemic and pack it in our cart. And then I go to the line and I see the same lady who I see every time I go to the grocery store. I say, hi, how are you, Sally? And we check out and I pay and I get back in my car and I load up my groceries and I drive off and I come home. Is that news? And just ask yourself that question for a moment and I'll get back to that story in a minute. Another scenario, your kids, your grandkids, they go to Rochester schools. They go through the elementary school, they go to the middle school. I went to Troy, so I went to Hamilton Elementary School, then Boland Park Middle School, then Troy High School, then Michigan State University. So I go through a system and a process and I go through schooling. And in 4 years at Troy High School, I graduate. I pass and I get my diploma and I walk and I move on with my life. Is that news? Is it? Is it even news if a bunch of people got 3.5s and 4.0s? Is that news? I'd bargain to say no. You want to know why? That's supposed to happen. When something that's not supposed to happen happens, it's news. When something that's supposed to happen happens, it's not news. And so people going to school and graduating, that's supposed to happen. That's the way, that's why we have this system the way we do in this great country, that your taxpayer money will pay for great public schools. Not everyone has that in their towns. You know, Michigan's blessed. We got great schools. Troy's a gretes school district. Rochester's a great school district. When you go to the grocery store, I change the story for you. And you come, get out of your car, and I go walking in. I grab my stuff. I grab the chips. I grab the potato chips. I grab all the stuff. I put it in my cart. I say hi to Sally. I check out. And I go out to my car. And as I'm walking in the parking lot, I look to my left, and a car goes barreling through and hits somebody and then takes off. Now there's yellow. You got the chief and Oakland County Sheriff's Department, obviously, looking for this vehicle that hit somebody. What are they going to do? How are they going to find this guy? They saw a red Blazer with a back tail light that was out and a bumper sticker. And that car is the one that hit that lady and left. You better believe that's going to be on the news that night for a couple of reasons. Only two reasons. One, something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. You're supposed to be able to go to the grocery store and come home without being hit by a car. Number two, the police need me to put that information out there so that we can catch the bad guy. Now I'm going to frame something. So now you get it. Now, by the way, the high school scenario, we find out from Rochester schools that 18% of the high school seniors weren't graduating this year. So that's not supposed to happen. They're supposed to graduate. So now we go find out why. We talk to the school superintendent. What happened? Was it the pandemic? Were people depressed? What was going on at home? And that's a story. The reason it's a story is because that's something that wasn't supposed to happen that did. That being said, I'm going to give you and take another morose, dark steer to the left and bring up some of the scars in our country that obviously are here. But I want to invite you to a conversation real quickly. I'm not Black. I'm not white. Right in between. I'm married to a white woman named Julie. She's from New Orleans. She's a white Catholic woman from New Orleans. I'm a brown Hindu guy from Troy. I see both perspectives. I see the side of Americans. I see people, white Americans, I see Black Americans, and I understand what each other is saying. And for whatever reason, both sides talk to me a lot, maybe because they see me as in between. But here's the problem that I have and that you should have as a good Christian, a good person. You should have a problem with this. When people say, I don't want to hear about all that crap in Detroit, all those people in East Point, man, they're shooting each other up. Yeah, I don't want to hear about all that. And here's why that's a problem, because of this. If something happens outside of your house in Rochester and you heard chaos and you looked out your window and you saw yellow tape and our good chief is out there and he's not talking, what is he going to go up to every neighbor and be like, sir, I wanted to explain to you what was happening in this home. Chief's too busy. Chief actually has his lieutenants, his deputies, and he's trying to figure out what happened in that house. So they're investigating. They're all behind the yellow tape. You drive by, gawking, slowly driving by, and you keep driving. You come home about an hour later, yellow tape is still there, but then the police start leaving. And you go up to your neighbor, you go, hey, what happened in that house in Rochester? This isn't supposed to happen here. They got something happened there. What happened? And the neighbor goes, I don't know. And you turned on the TV. And no one mentioned it. Newspaper didn't pick it up. TV didn't pick it up. WWJ didn't talk about it. WJR didn't talk about it. No one talked about it. What does that say about that house and what happened in that house? There's only one answer. It's not important. What happened to you is not important. That's why we're not going to talk about it. It's not important. So we find out that something violent or something bad happened inside of a home. Neighbors want to know what happened. Neighbors who live in the area and outside of that area, my mom and dad who may live 5 miles away are saying, oh my God, Ruth, that was 5 miles from my house. What happened in that house? And no one ever knows the answer. The problem with that is that we're telling that person, the people in that house, that your story is not important to us. Just because it happens more often in an area doesn't make those lives less important. And I struggle with that because I think to myself, my wife grew up Catholic, she's Christian, my in-laws are Christian, my father and mother are Hindu, we have very similar value systems. And I think, well, one life's not more important than the other, right? I mean, of course. And so if something happens, by the way, don't take the race out of it for a minute. If something happens in a trailer park with its all-white community, or happens in downriver in an all-white community, Allen Park or wherever, where maybe there's more domestics, more crime because of socioeconomic issues. And the chief would be the best guest in the world to talk to because he could actually unwrap that for us and talk about how socioeconomic stuff causes crime issues. But if someone in a white, poor community, and there's a lot of violence going on there, and we stop covering it, we're basically saying that's not important. And so the same thing, we happen to live in a city with 680,000 Black Americans who live in our backyards. They're our neighbors. These are our brothers and sisters. The vast majority of them, as you know, are good, law-abiding, wonderful people. The FBI will tell you there's about 1,800 or something like that violent criminals that live in that city. Violent criminals, 1,800 that are like in charge of the kingpin of in Detroit. But 648,000 are not. They matter, and their stories of their neighborhoods matter. We need to be able to tell that, look, this happened again in this neighborhood. We need help to find the car that is and gone to Warren, gone to East Point, has left Detroit and is now sitting in this town. We need help finding these people because lives matter, all of them. And so I think it's really one of those critical things where I hope that gave you reason to reflect and think for a moment about why it is we do what we do. And the whole 1985 model that the audience thinks we still roll by, if it bleeds, it leads. We don't think that way anymore. And so if we know we have fewer people watching, Devin Skillian at Channel 4 and Rup Raj at Channel 2 and Dave Llewellyn at Channel 7, we're not stupid. Just like your businesses and your kids' businesses have evolved and things change, ours has too. We look at the metrics, we know who likes us, who trusts us, and who doesn't. We're not going to get it right every day, but you better darn well believe we're going to try. And I just want to make sure that you knew that. And by the way, since I gave the bio to Mr. Duncan there, they have since moved me to the 5 o'clock show. So now I anchor from 5 to 6 every night. And I hope you'll give us a shot and just watch us for 20 minutes. You don't have to watch the whole show. Watch for 20 minutes at the top and see if you think what I say is true. Things that shouldn't have happened did. Because after the first 10 minutes of news, we do things that happen that should have happened. And we talk about progress. The vast majority of our show is actually neutral or good news. But the first 10 minutes are going to be the things that shouldn't have happened that did. And that's why people think that it's all bad news. It's not. So I hope you'll give us a shot. The weather guy is really funny, Rich Luderman. He's a veteran, by the way, and a great man. We have a sports guy named Dan Miller, who's the dean of sports in Detroit, hands down better than anybody. I direct competition to Channel 4 and 7. Bring it. Dan is a class act and a great guy. Hugh Perkins, Monica Gale, Taryn Asher, and myself, and our whole team. We're here. Look, we're going to have bad days just like you do. We're going to have a bad show once in a while. We're going to miss the mark. But you better believe we're trying every single time. So thank you for that. And Tim, if you want to open it up for any questions, I don't know how you want to do that. I'm here.
I'll just let you lead. Run at the meeting. So if there's any questions, go ahead and pop them up either on chat or through the meeting. Rachel's camera.
So many nice messages, Tim. I mean, did we pay these people to say these nice things?
Great. Actually, they're really nice people.
They are good people. I could tell. Anyone who has a question, let me look at the chat. I don't know if you're asking on chat, but let me look here. Anyone has a question? Oh, go ahead, please.
How do organizations like the public library, for instance, get their stories onto local news?
Great question. First of all, and let me be very clear, and this is, as you can tell, I'm pretty real, and you are too, so I can be honest with you and level with you. Make sure it's newsworthy. What I mean by that is, if something's happening at your library that's unique, that's not happening at other libraries, that makes it newsworthy. If there's a struggle because you're trying to figure out how to drive an audience back into the library and you're getting creative with how you're doing it, that's news. But just make sure of that. So call the newsroom. Emails, you're never going to get a response, ever. Email there's so much noise out there. I always tell people, look, I'm 44. I say, let's go old school. Let's pick up the phone and call people again and build relationships. Because when you call someone at Channel 2, you're going to get someone's name. And you can very politely say, who am I speaking to? My name is Al. Hi, Al. What do you do there at Fox 2? I'm the managing editor. Oh, great, Al. Nice to meet you. My name is so-and-so. I'm with the public library. Listen, we're having this thing. Now you've met the person on the phone. I think that's really, really critical. He may ask you to email him after that. And that's fine, but you got to get his direct email. That's a huge piece of the pie. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
And you can email me. I'll put my email in the chat. Anyone who has story ideas, email me directly. And I'm a very honest person. So if I don't think it can happen, I'll tell you, I don't know that they're going to go for that. I can be honest with you. I'll say, oh, well, that's happening everywhere. You know what? I told a lady the other day, real quickly, I felt so badly. I had no choice. She said, hey, the kids at my school are doing a play. And I said, oh, great. What's unique about the play? And there was nothing that was unique about the play. Aren't there very talented young people? I said, well, that's great. I said, but every high school in Michigan has a play, right? So like for them, and I feel terrible because I know, listen, I come from a town, I remember Troy when it was very few office buildings and only half the Somerset Mall was there. You know, I remember seeing small town stuff. I used to MC the Miss Troy pageant every year and go to the Troy Days Fair and hang out with my friends. That sense of community, you know, there are great things happening everywhere. But if you're having a fair in Allen Park, they're having a fair in Warren, and you better believe they're having a fair in Troy. They probably have a fair in South Lyon, right? So it's like, you got to figure out what's unique about my fair. You know, maybe we're raising money for an organization or something. So just kind of keep that in mind.
We have a question here, live.
Actually, I have two. The first one is quick. What is the relationship between Fox News and Fox 2 News?
Great question. So there is a company called 21st Century. My paycheck every 2 weeks comes from News Corp, NEWSCORP, News Corp. News Corp owns a bunch of stuff. So think about it like the big umbrella company, right? So News Corp owns 21st Century, which is the people who make the movies. They have magazine houses that do magazines. They also have 17 owned and operated local TV stations called a department called Fox Television Stations, local. Houston, Detroit, New York, Dallas, Chicago, all the major markets. They own the Fox station. They're not just affiliates. Like Channel 4 is an NBC affiliate. They're not owned by NBC. They're owned by Graham, which is a company that happens to carry NBC programming. Fox, too, is owned by the same people who own 21st Century Pictures, Fox television stations, and a TV station or a network you may have heard about called Fox News. So they happen to own Fox News, and then separately they own Fox television stations, separately they own 21st Century. Some of the things go over each other, like we'll pull some programming from Fox. If Chris Wallace does an interview with President Biden or former President Trump, we pull that interview over. Okay, well, our mothership gave us that interview. We want to use that. But they don't have any editorial control over our message locally. They don't tell us you have to air these things. Our managers from Grosse Pointe, Walled Lake, Southfield, and Beverly Hills. This is where the managers live. They don't live in New York. So just keep that in mind. Great question. Second question, though.
Yeah, the second question is a little more personal. Going to what you said at the beginning of your talk. When you feel that people take one look at you and assume that you're other, you know, that you're one of us, let's say. And I mean, surely it has to wear you down after a while. How do you bounce back from it? Or how do you have armor to where it doesn't hurt your feelings anymore?
You know, my dad taught me this. 74-year-old guy who worked at General Motors and Ford and General Dynamics, just a great guy, a hero, a wonderful man. And he's so proud to be American. He's just so proud to be American. And so he he always tells me, look, you got to look for the good here, because there's a lot of stripes on that flag and there's a lot of meaning behind it. But if someone's waving that flag in my face to USA me, to say like white power, white people, white origin, white heritage, I feel that energy. I mean, it's not a nuanced thing. It's pretty overt. I mean, I've had people say some things to me that are pretty awful. My dad taught me to use humor. And so this is kind of funny. I had a guy last week who said, go back to where you come from. And this happens all the time, by the way. I just want you to understand that this is not a new thing. This isn't like, oh my God, I can't believe someone said that to him. This is a weekly occurrence. I just remind myself of a couple things. My father and my mom always tells me, she's a wise woman too. School teacher in Troy, worked at Gorman's as an interior designer, 2 master's degrees. They both speak very clear English, even though people yell menus at them at the restaurant still, which is so embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for everybody in the room. I'm like, why are you yelling at them? We have chicken Alfredo. And my dad's like, I understand. I've been in this country for 46 years. I know what chicken Alfredo is. Thank you. You know, but the thing about it is, he said, use humor. And so and he says, make a joke with yourself. I mean, I had a guy last week tell me something about, I don't remember, I'm not American, blah, blah. And I thought to myself, I just wrote him back. I said, look, you mentioned your pickup truck and the apple pie and all that. I said, just so you know, the pickup truck that you mentioned, my dad probably designed the powertrain in your truck. I don't know how much more American and imaginative and hands-on and mind-on that could be, but my father helped design your truck. The very things that you love in America are things that all of us have a hand in, and my father and mother are included. My mom helped educate kids in Troy. My brother is a pricing strategist at OnStar when it first started in 1990 something. Like, so I look at it like, look, you know, you don't have licensure on being American. You don't get to do that. I pay taxes, you pay taxes. I love this country, you love this country. You may love it in a different way. And you may have had family in this country that's been here longer. But you better damn well believe that in the 46 years my family's been here, there's a lot of pride and there's a lot of red, white, and blue going through these veins. So that's the best way for me to answer it.
Good answer.
Thank you. I'll tell you, America isn't white, it's multicultural. If you served in the military, as I did, and many other guys in Rotary, especially in a special unit, I was with Special Forces, there is no room for racial junk. So I'm really glad you spoke today. That was very interesting, and I appreciate it.
You were so kind to say that. And thank you for your service, sir. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Rube, thank you. And we're going to close this meeting out, but I really appreciate you coming in and talking. That was interesting.
It was a pleasure to be with all you. My email's there. You know, if you just caught one of them, there's me and Biden and me and Trump. Not just one. I got both.
It's interesting. I listened to all 3 Fox News on the radio, and
yeah,
one of them was real far kind of right, and the other 2 are kind of left. So it's or I'm sorry, 2 right and 1 left. But
yeah,
interesting. Anyway, any other comments before we close this thing out? That was great. Thank you, Rube.
See you soon. Thank you.